So the big question is this: how do young men like us, who didn't listen to society, who are on our own, how do we grow and improve ourselves so that we can live a better tomorrow? That is the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is James Radzinski, and welcome to the Ascend Momentum Show. Welcome back, everybody. Today was a very good day. Let me tell you what happened. So I have not even done a single thing to move towards my goals, yet I have moved towards my goals more so than I have in the last week. Let me explain. So there's a book called Reality Transurfing, and excuse me, this book is probably the best book that hands down this book is the best book I've ever read and probably will ever read in my life. And the lessons that I've learned, the things that I've learned to do from this book is invaluable. Let me explain what this book is. This book is, if I had to only read one book my entire life, I would choose Reality Transurfing. If I was teleported to a deserted island and was given one item of my choice to help me survive, I would choose Reality Transurfing. I would not choose like a knife or anything else. I would choose Reality Transurfing. That book. This book is the best book that I've ever read. So what's in the book? The book is very hard to explain at this point because even though I'm in the middle of reading the second time through, it's still like super hard to explain. Pretty much, it changed my life, and it tells you from the information that you learn in that book, you basically change how you see, react, and view the world and everything inside of it. Like, I'm not mad anymore. I don't get all my emotions are mostly positive now, and I'm still working on making it better. My mind has been clear, just all around. It's pretty much a book about worldview, how you perceive the world, and the things that are happening on inside of it. But it's a lot more than just that, too. If you're into Stoicism, it's kind of like I don't know anything about Stoicism, but my friend read a lot of Stoicism books, and he also read Transurfing, and I'm pretty sure he explained it very well. Reality Transurfing is very similar to Stoicism, except it's a lot more goal-oriented, like goal-based, and it's a lot more practical information. So with that being said, I want to tell you what happened to me today. Over the past month, let's say 20 days, I've been meditating consistently. And today changed everything for me. I'd been meditating consistently for the past 20 days, but I'd been meditating inconsistently for the past year. And let me tell you this. Today, the amount of discoveries and epiphanies that I've had are worth so much. And I'm sharing them with you right now. So, as I said earlier, I've been meditating for quite some time now. And today I did my normal morning meditation, and then I, after I was done with my morning routine, done with the gym, done with studying, me and my friend go to the park every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, and just hang out, do like a workout like cardio, climb trees. Just pretty much we go there shirtless and barefoot so we can get a lot of sun, and barefoot because lots of reasons. Let's not get into that right now because I'm talking about this. And we had climbed a very tall tree, one that didn't have any branches accessible. You had to like bear crawl your way up. And I'll tell you this, after we climbed the tree, we were like, I wanted to go into the grass and like lay in the grass and get some sun. And so I just decided to meditate. We decided to meditate. And we meditated once, and I got a pretty good meditation, and I learned some stuff. And there's this thing in Transurfing called signs, and it's basically where there's if you're moving closer to your goal, you'll see these signs in real life, and it just basically shows that you're on the right track. So after I was meditating that one time, it was a deep meditation. And I learned some valuable lessons in that, which I'll share after this. But once I got out of my meditation, my friend was like, "You ready to get some work done?" Referencing us going back home and starting to work on our business. And I just ignored it. I don't know. I was awake and I was present, 100% present, but something in me it was just like a habit almost, where I just looked away and ignored what just happened and forgot about it. And then I just started looking around at the trees and around the park and just around my environment around me, and I started getting really like happy and grateful because I love this place. Which is crazy because a couple of days ago, and even yesterday, even this morning, I'm still like, I got to get out of here. I got to get rich and move forward, and so I can get out of here. But today, during that meditation, I learned to love my environment, and that's one of the principles of Transurfing. You have to love your area so you can align your thoughts to that, so you can induce a shift in your life to a better area. So that's the whole premise of Transurfing. Your thoughts can change your environment pretty much. And so I'm sitting here just having done meditating, and my friend Franklin said, "You ready to get some work done?" I just looked away with indifference and ignored it. And I was just looking around, and then probably about 6 or 7 seconds later, maybe 10 seconds, this yellow sports car, a very nice sports car, drives across the street in this like very crappy road. It's like a not very good road that people would not want to drive a sports car on. And this sports car drives across the street right in front of me, and I point over to my friend, and he knows what signs are. He's read Transurfing before, and I like get his attention and point to that car, and I just said, "There it is," and we both knew exactly what it was, and that was an awesome experience. And so after that moment, we talked, and I deconstructed what just happened, and that was a sign that I'm moving closer to my goals. So that's one thing. But once we deconstructed what was happening, we came to the conclusion that we're both 17 years old, and our brains have been molded and full of trash from society for 17 years. And we came to the conclusion that meditation is the way to cure that, and we must meditate every day consistently for a long, today I've probably meditated for maybe 2 or 3 hours so far, like total time, depending on how long of a meditation I was at the park, because we didn't time it, we didn't have our phones with us. But we came to the conclusion that we must clean up our minds, and this will take a lot of time in order to move forward now. And also, we must start living now. And this is one of the big pieces of Transurfing. It's that you must align your thinking patterns to how you want your life to be. So we realized today that we had been working towards our businesses and saying pretty much what we were doing is we're going to get rich so we can start living once we're rich. Like, we're not living now. We're going to start living once we're rich. And what we realize now is that we have to start living now and have great experiences now, like what I just had with meditation, and start loving our area and being super grateful for what we have right now. We have to start living now. And that is, we must start cleaning our minds up. And then that will allow us to be happy where we are. And then I explained it to him like this. So every time we do something like this and keep studying Reality Transurfing, that book, every time we do that, and then what I noticed after I was done with that meditation is that my base happiness level increased a little bit. And so every single time we do that, it increases a little bit more and more and more until eventually our base gets to like our peak happiness. And then during that journey to the peak happiness, a lot of things will change around us in our environment and our world. And then by the time we get to that peak happiness, we'll be at our destination and we'll be happy along the way. So, and that is especially good because that builds ourself, our own character. And so that means that once we get to our destination, we'll be happy there. But then, let's say we want to visit our family and come back, we'll be happy here too because that's our base happiness level. Our happiness has to be detached from our environment pretty much. And I believe that the way you do that is by studying Reality Transurfing and meditating. So then once we came to that conclusion, we decided that we wanted to meditate again and have that same experience. So we meditated again, and mind you, we were meditating in the grass with no shirt on, no shoes, the only thing that we had on our body was our underwear and our shorts. And it was a very sunny day, and we were in the middle of the grass, in the middle of a park, like a soccer field, and we were like the only ones at that park, and we were just laying we were just laying just on our backs with our eyes closed and very still. Like, we did not move at all. And what we came to the conclusion about, so let me tell you my experience of that meditation. the first meditation was awesome. And then the second meditation, I kind of had an expectation to have the same experience. And then I quickly became aware of that expectation and realized that we should not have expectations, because then it won't happen. And that's a principle of transurfing. Expectation. Do not have expectation. And that's the same thing with like our goals too, which I think we are having an expectation that we're going to be rich soon. We can have the expectation that we'll be rich, that we are rich, but we can't have the expectation that we'll be rich soon. So, because then it just won't happen. And so I quickly like deleted that expectation from my mind. And then during my meditation, I realized that there were phases, there were phases to meditating. And before that second meditation that I had today, I had never experienced past phase 2 of meditation. And what I mean by the phases are that I felt like different sensations throughout the meditation and experienced different things. They're hard to explain. You just have to feel it yourself and understand. And so there was, let's say, 6 phases. And then I woke up from my meditation, which I believe was a very long meditation, maybe like 20 to 30, 40 minutes. I don't know. We were at a park and we got home like 2 hours later than we used to. We usually do. So that I slowly woke up out of that meditation and slowly did certain things and then experienced sensations. And that meditation, I learned a lot of things. And I'm going to tell you all of them right now. So, first of all, we have to meditate to become a great let me start with this. Transurfing is the key to win at life. Transurfing is pretty much what reality transurfing teaches. It's to become a transurfer. And transurfing is the key to win life. And I wanted to believe that before today, but today I really believe that now. Because today was the first experience that I had a first actual experience that I had being a transurfer. And the second thing that I learned was that we have to meditate to become a great transurfer. So let me explain that. When I was reading Transurfing the second time through, and I'm only on page 60 out of 750, so I'm not even close to done on my second read through. I'm just beginning. So when I was reading the first couple chapters, this one concept kept coming up and I kept being intrigued by it, and it's that we have choice. And I knew of that concept the first read through, but I didn't really understand what he meant by that. And now I do. We have choice and we get to choose everything that we have. And the way we do that is through our mind, our thoughts. So I can choose to be a millionaire, or I can choose to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. And I'm not really explaining this very well, but you will understand it once you meditate consistently and you learn transurfing. Because choice is... Let me explain a story. So, before, I would see a girl, and then I would, stare. Or not stare, but, only... If a pretty girl was nearby, I would just only think about her. Even if I didn't even know her, and she didn't know me. I would just only think about her, and I'm sure a lot of people are like this. And I was like that until a couple days ago. And a couple days ago, I realized that I can choose exactly what goes on in my mind. I can choose not to think about her. I can choose to focus and think about my breath and stay present. And so what happened was at the gym a couple days ago, there was a pretty girl, and I kept on reminding myself, I have a choice, I have a choice. And so I ended up only like giving her like maybe a minute of my energy total out of like the 40, like an hour that I was at the gym. And then yesterday, same girl, same situation, and I gave even less energy. And this morning, same girl, same situation, and I gave less than a second of energy. The second I realized that she was there, I did not give any energy. And that's huge. That's choice, pretty much. Choice is what happens in your mind. A lot of people think, and I was the same way until literally like 5 days ago, a lot of people think that they don't have choice, but the way you get choice is by gaining control over your mind and just focusing on what is going on in your mind, what you're thinking about, just everything in your mind, pretty much. Just be critical of your mind and you'll gain choice. So what I mean by meditate to become a great transurfer, if we know that we get choice by having control over our mind, well, how do you get control over your mind? You meditate. Meditation clears your mind, and it basically trains your brain to stay more focused and be in more control. And if you guys notice that TikTok trains your mind to be scattered and you can't really control it, it trains your mind to not be in control. But meditation trains the opposite. It trains your mind to stay in control and stay awake and stay focused and stay clear. So if we can stay clear, then we can control our mind. And then if we can control our mind, we gain choice. And then we basically win at life because we can choose whatever we want. And you guys may be skeptical now, but guess what? I'm choosing to be a millionaire, and hopefully definitely by the time people start actually coming back and listening to my older episodes, they'll be able to see that this guy is not a millionaire, but he chose to be a millionaire, and now he's a millionaire. Because you guys will be listening in the future when I'm actually a millionaire, so you'll know how I ended up. And that's a huge thing, choice. And I just deconstructed something that I did not learn in Transurfing. I learned from Transurfing, but in combination with other stuff too. So meditate to become a great Transurfer is one of the big lessons. Another lesson that I learned was, I learned this before when I was rereading the Transurfing, and there was one statement that he said that stuck with me, and it's, every moment that I spend practicing Transurfing, I'm consciously getting closer to my goals. So if you think about that, every single time you are practicing your Transurfing techniques, so anytime you're present, anytime you think about your slide, anytime you just do all that, anytime you practice the Transurfing techniques, anytime you're happy, literally anytime you follow any principle in Transurfing, you are consciously moving towards your goals. So that's what I learned during my meditation, because that sign happened, which would have only happened because I meditated. And then the second time I meditated, I didn't see it because I didn't have my eyes open, but I could hear it. And this never happens in the area that we were at. Extremely loud plane flew by over our heads. And maybe I'm just picking situations, but that never happened. And we've been going to that park for all of summer break. And we've lived here. We live here all of our lives. So we know what goes on, and that has never happened to us before. So that's another sign, and that just shows that we are consciously moving towards our goals. So that statement is true because we were practicing transurfing techniques. Because towards the end of our meditation, once we were super deep, during our meditation, we would just focus on our breath. But once we were in the sixth phase that I talked about of meditation, we would play our slides in our mind, which our slides are pretty much just our goals. And we would just imagine ourselves living like the life. So for me, I was imagining myself surfing, and that was an awesome feeling. And then I also imagined myself on a beach, just laying there, and it was pretty easy to imagine because the sun was beating on me physically in real, in the material world, and I was laying on the ground, and so it was pretty easy to imagine that too. And I think that it has the most power. Visualization has the most power when you're deep into meditation. The sixth phase that I talk about. I don't actually know if there's 6 phases. I just made that up. But I think that there are phases to meditation. So that is that goal, that lesson that we learned, that every moment we spent practicing transurfing techniques, I am consciously getting closer to my goals. So that's that lesson. And another lesson that I learned was something that I kind of came up of today, and it's called the test. I call it the test. And if you've ever meditated, you might get into your meditation position, and you might feel an itch or the urge to itch something. And then once you itch that, 4 more itches pop up. So you're just moving constantly, and then before you know it, you just become jittery and then not wanting to meditate. So I was conscious of that over the past couple of days when I realized that was a thing. And then today, during my meditation, I kind of became aware of what that was and what it was meant for. And I'll tell you how I discovered that. So I was deep in my meditation. This was the first meditation I kind of grew. Well, actually, this was the first meditation when I discovered it, that it happened today. I was laying in the grass, and bugs and ants were crawling all over my body. And I wanted to get up and kick them off, flick them off of my body, and itch, and a bunch of itches would pop up. But I realized that if I just ignored it, then I was able to meditate. And so I realized that it was a test, because if I failed the test, then I wouldn't be able to meditate. But if I passed it, then I would be able to meditate, and I'd be able to meditate deeply. And pretty much every single time I meditate, I've been tested. So you guys probably will be tested too. And just ignore the test. And also, while I was writing down the lessons that I learned, because I instantly went home and then wrote down the lessons that I learned so I wouldn't lose them. And I realized that while I was writing it down, I was kind of in the zone when I was writing it down. So I wrote down ignore the test while meditating. And then I wrote down an extra part that I didn't learn at the park. And then I said, and even in life. And then I pointed an arrow saying whatever that means, because I don't really know what that means yet, but I will learn what that means and I'll share it with you. But I think it means that there are small tests like nuisances. So let's go back to the meditating example. When you're meditating, there's an itch. It's just a nuisance. It's just a little thing. And then if you try and itch it, then even more pop up. So maybe that itch is just a pendulum. And in Transurfing, he explains pendulums. And pendulums are basically things that take away your energy. That's the quickest way to explain it. But what if those itches are pendulums, and then if we ignore that test, but then we also have to ignore the test in real life, and real life would be pendulums also as well. So I'll let you guys know as I learn more about that second part of the lesson that I learned. But the first part is ignore the test while meditating, and you'll be successful meditating. So just ignore the itch, and that's why before I would meditate sitting like crisscross applesauce in the classic meditation position. But now I'm going to start meditating laying on my back, because then I can be fully relaxed, and I don't think that I would have been able to get in such a deep meditation if I was sitting up, because then my muscles would have gotten tired, and then I would have started aching and all that. But when you're just laying down, there's really no excuse. You can just lay there, and then you just have to ignore the tests, and then you'll be able to meditate. And the more you meditate, the more you practice at it, the easier it'll get, and the less difficult, the more awake you'll be able to be, and the more efficient your meditations will be. And the last lesson that I learned today was that the world is a mirror. And I knew that before because I was reading Transurfing, and that's one of the big premises is the world reflects how you think of it. So if you hate the world and hate everything about it, well then the world will give you all the things that you hate, and it will just keep on sucking for you pretty much, because it reflects back to you. But if you love the world and love everything about it, your life will just get better and better and better. Even if you live in a dump right now and you love it, and you just begin to love it, love everything about your life, and then be grateful, your condition, your situation will get better and better. But the real lesson, the lesson that I learned today was that the world is a mirror, and become independent to become independent. And I learned this, I'll explain what that means through a story. So once we were done with the second meditation, me and my friend were discussing all the lessons that we just learned. And we were just talking about the lessons that I just shared with you just now. And then one thing that my friend said was that he was talking about how, because I said that we should love everything about our life, and because then it will change. And he said that he wanted to become independent because that is something that he needs and loves and wants really bad. And he wants to become independent from his parents, so that's why he's working on the business. And that's the same with me too. We're both working on the business so we can become independent and live our own lives. And I kind of responded. I was in the zone. I was speaking through the alternatives flow, which is another term in the Transurfing. The alternatives flow is pretty much everything that exists. It's kind of like what powers being in the zone, like how athletes are in the zone. The alternatives flow kind of powers that. But I was speaking through the alternatives flow, and what I said to him was that, what if we're choosing to stay dependent? What if the fact that we feel dependent is holding us back from becoming independent? Because since the world is a mirror, and we feel dependent with our parents on a mental and a alternative standpoint, our mental standpoint, that's preventing us from changing our lifelines into lifelines where we're independent, because the world is a mirror, so it'll give us more lifelines where we are dependent. And by the way, a lifeline is pretty much like your path in life, and there are infinite paths. And the lifeline is inside of the alternative flow, and there are infinite. Since the alternative flow has everything that ever is, will or was and will be, then there are infinite paths for you, and you can choose whatever you want, whatever path you want. And so back to what I was saying is, since we're choosing to feel dependent in the mental aspect, that is keeping us dependent on the material aspects. And since the world is a mirror and your thoughts manifest into reality, we came to the conclusion that first, before we do anything, we must become independent mentally. So we must become independent mentally, whatever that means. I'm still learning what that means, and I'm learning along with you guys. But I think what it means is, actually, I think it means a lot more than this, but one of the entry-level concepts that I came up with is that we have to stop asking for help. But I don't know, because asking for help is a good thing. And I don't know. I'll keep you guys updated on that, but I hope you guys catch what I'm putting down. We have to become independent mentally so that we can induce shifts to new lifelines where we are independent in real life, in the material world. And that's the mirror. Once we feel independent, we will be independent. So that's another thing that we realized that was holding us back. Another piece of the mental game. And I'm discovering more and more kind of limiting beliefs, but also just concepts that I've been holding on to all my life that are holding us back. The more I'm learning about transurfing and the more I'm meditating. And the thing is that I don't think transurfing really talks about meditating that much, but meditating in combination with transurfing is one of the most powerful things that I've ever done. And I've been meditating consistently for the past maybe 20 days, maybe month, I don't know. And I started rereading Transurfing maybe the past week. And I didn't really understand the combination of the two until today. And maybe I don't even understand it. Maybe I'm just at the entry level. Just like what I said about our base happiness level. Every time we meditate and combine Transurfing like that, like how I did, and just come out of the meditation with an immense thing of gratitude and a great feeling. And maybe every single time we do that, we learn more and more, and as we're studying and applying more and more of the Transurfing, we learn more and more, and then our baseline of understanding and knowledge of Transurfing and our baseline of habits, our baseline of happiness, our baseline of wealth, physical wealth, all the above. Our baseline goes higher and higher and higher until eventually we become as good as, I don't think we'll ever be as good as we can get because there's always something to improve on, but eventually our baseline will be higher than our current peak right now. And then that means that our peak will be higher. It's the whole thing, if you can really understand what I'm saying and contextualize what I'm saying. So those are the two things that we need to be doing, because all of these lessons stemmed from two things that I've been doing. One is studying Transurfing, two is meditating. And then all of these lessons that I learned today stemmed from those two things that I've been doing. And let me tell you, I never really studied my books until I think yesterday or 2 days ago. No, it was yesterday. 2 days ago, I ordered notebooks because 2 days ago I was at the park with my friend and we were talking, and then I realized that there was something that we should do, and it was that we should write down. I'll explain the whole thing. But let me tell the story first. So we were at the park and we realized this thing. So then I ordered 3 notebooks because right now I'm only letting myself read Russell Brunson's books and reality Transurfing. So I'm only reading 3 books because I only chose 2 of Russell Brunson's books to read. So I'm reading Expert Secrets, .com Secrets, and Reality Transurfing, and that's all I'm reading for the near future. I'm just going to reread them all again and again. But right now I'm just reading Expert Secrets in the morning and Reality Transurfing at night. And I started writing notes in my book, but then we were at the park and we were talking about that, and I realized that we should be writing notes in a notebook and just writing, explaining a lot of different important concepts and things to remember, and then also writing down pieces of things like stories that happened throughout the day. So for example, I was reading Reality Transurfing and I wrote down we need to savor every single piece of good news and happiness that happens to us, and like savor that for a while and not just forget about the good news and then go right back into the monotony of life. And so I wrote all that down and then started reading Transurfing again, because I would read and then write down stuff, write down stuff. I don't really have a structure to it. I just basically rewrite and explain a lot of different things. And in Expert Secrets, I draw pictures because I think that helps me to remember concepts. And after I wrote down that thing of to savor good pieces of information, my sister interrupted me while I was reading and offered me a mango that she already cut. And unfortunately it's after 4 o'clock, so I declined because I don't eat after 4 o'clock because it's bad for your sleep. But oh, I almost fell down, whoops. And then after I declined, I just quickly went back to my book. But then I remembered that we should savor all the good news that we receive. So then I spent like maybe a minute just thinking about how that made me feel, contemplating the feelings, and just feeling really happy and feeling good about myself. And that's the power of writing down notes, because I don't think that I would have really, my understanding on all these books, when I'm studying them, is so much better than when I am just reading them. And what I mean by study is actually having a dedicated notebook to each book and writing down the date, what page you're on, and then just starting reading and writing. I only write the page that I start with at that day, so I know like the general area, and then I just keep writing down like pieces of information that I need to know. Like I don't really have a structure to it, but I recommend it 100%. And that's the thing that I recommend studying. And I study 2 times a day and 2 separate books, because I want to learn a lot about business and just all the stuff that Russell Brunson talks about. I want to learn all that stuff. But I also want to learn about reality transurfing more, and I found that I have learned way more and I got way more value out of my time by actively learning and rewriting and explaining and describing and sharing stories that happen in my day that relates to this. All of the stuff while I'm reading, I do all that in a notebook while I'm reading each book. And I found that that's extremely, extremely powerful, because the past 2 days were more valuable and efficient, and I learned more in the past 2 days than the past week of passively reading my books. And one thing is that once I'm done with I just started this today, once I'm done with my study time, I meditate. And I'll explain why I do this. And it's because there was a person who won I don't really know all the specifics of this, but there was a person who won like a very prestigious academic award for his advancements in learning, and he was able to learn and teach some crazy complicated topics to like fourth graders. Some like quantum physics, like complicated topics, like crazy complicated topics to like fourth graders. And his method of learning was to learn for like 30 minutes. Learn actively by writing down all that stuff. And then he would take like a 5-minute break. And when he was at that 5-minute break, he would do absolutely nothing. He would literally just go on a walk or just something that did not stimulate his brain. So TikTok and going on the phone does not count. You have to like go outside and just sit in nature. And so I just interpreted, when I learned that, I thought instantly meditation would be the best. He didn't say, like in the podcast that I heard this on, he didn't say meditation, but I thought of that instantly. And so once he does that 5-minute break, he goes back and learns more, and then he does another 5-minute break. So he alternates 30 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and then he does that for like 3 cycles. And then on the 5-minute break, he actually explains what he learned to another person. And then if he can't explain a certain part, he realizes that he doesn't actually understand that certain part, so then that's what he has to study on his next 30-minute session. And so while I don't actually explain all the stuff that I learned to another person, I do follow the 30 minutes on and 5 minutes off, but I changed it up a little bit to be better for me. And I do maybe like, I set a timer for 30 minutes, and then depending on where I'm at, I go a little bit longer or cut it there, because I like to end my reading at the end of a chapter or the end of like a subsection, like the sections that have a heading. You know how in chapters there's like the chapter title, but then there's like the other titles that are like subheadings to start paragraphs, like new sections of paragraphs. So I like to end either at a chapter or a subheading section. And so I do that, and then once I've finished, I just do like a 10-minute meditation, and that just like absorbs all of the knowledge into my brain. Because if you learn about sleeping, I learned all this stuff in a book called Why We Sleep, and there's 2 phases, there's 2 parts of your sleep, non-REM and REM, and they have like different sections inside of it. Or REM has like 5 or 6 sections inside of it, like non-REM 1, non-REM 2, or normal REM 1, 2, like 3, 4. And REM is sleeping, and non-REM is like deep sleep, where you don't really remember it, where you do not remember it. You're not dreaming. REM is dreaming. And so when you're asleep, or when you're awake, let's start with when you're awake and you're learning new information, all that information is sent to a part of your brain that is it's like the short-term information storage site. And then once you fall asleep and you're in the non-REM phase, that information gets transferred over to the long-term storage phase. And then when you're in the REM sleep, all that new information gets like interconnected, and connections are made within your current information database. And it's pretty much added to your web of knowledge. So why I instantly thought of meditation once I listened to that podcast is because it just makes sense. If the purpose of the 5-minute break is to is to like remember and strengthen your knowledge. Well, the non-REM part of your non-REM part of your sleep puts it into the long-term storage. So meditate, and if we're doing nothing, then it also converts it to the long-term storage, but just at a slower rate than non-REM sleep does. Then meditation will do it at a quicker rate than just doing nothing, but a slower rate than the non-REM sleep. So meditation may be the most optimal in that case. And the reason why I tell you that whole thing is one, so you can see that, is one, so you can meditate after you're done studying, but also because I want you to see the value of reading books, even reading the science parts. Because there's a lot of science stuff that I would have skipped, but I also realized that it could be useful in my future, so I always read it. I always read the science pieces in my books. I didn't just skip straight to the practical stuff, because then I wouldn't have this ability to connect it to that other thing. Just like, it's funny because I'm connecting it to that knowledge that I learned in the sleep, but it's also kind of like an analogy or a metaphor to non-REM. So it's like a metaphor inside of a metaphor, to REM, I'm sorry, because REM sleep interconnects all the things, and I don't know if you're picking up what I'm putting down, but that's the whole deal with all that. Read the science parts also as well, because they're just as valuable. All right, well, to wrap things up, don't forget to download your favorite episodes and subscribe to the Ascend Momentum Show. But before you guys leave, make sure to remember the Eagles.